some new people here, so welcome. And we are in Shaar Habitachon. So we were starting going through the 10 things that the chemist is better than the person who is, that the person who has Bitachon and trust Hashem and Emunah and trust Hashem has a stronger power than somebody who has the strength and the ability to change metal into gold and silver. Before we go back into that topic, I just have to comment one thing, because as we started a week or two ago, I think 2 weeks ago or last week, is that after the shiur, when I get some personal feedback, I will share it. And I have to share with you something amazing. We've been discussing quite a bit in the last few weeks about two things. Number one, that once a person does his hishtadlus, the rest he can leave to Hashem. You don't need to be consistent all the time with exactly what to do and how to do. Once a person has reached what he has to do, Klapei Shmaya, he can let go. And the second thing was, which we still have a lot of work to do with, is what is the level and limit of hishtadlus? Like, how far do we need to go with hishtadlus properly? So I'll share with you that I've been learning in the mornings quite some time with a group of people. And in our group, there were two yeshiva bochrim. One learns in England and one learns in America. And they've been stuck here for quite a long time and starting to get quite jealous of their friends in America and in England that are coming back to yeshiva and about to start their term and their learning. And they're getting stressed and there's no flights. They couldn't find flights. I mean, there was earlier, but now last some time there wasn't really flights to America or to England, and they were stressed. One of them, his father is a well-known connected man in the community with a lot of connections, and he's been trying consistently, actually both of them have been trying very strong to find and doing anything they can to find flights, one to America, one to England. And one day they were sitting and learning together, and the Spanish, and they announced that that's it. They've done everything they can do. It was this week. They said, that's it. We've tried everything, every agent, embassies, connections, whatever we can. We don't have flights to go to yeshiva for Elul. It is what it is. There's no way we can get there, and we can't get there. And they gave up. But instead of giving up, they said, okay, we're giving up on our hishtadlus because there's nothing else we can do. Whatever happens, happens. Okay, I'm sure that the learners in the shiur won't be surprised that when they got home, they both got phone calls. One of them got a phone call from one of the agents about a flight to England. And a few hours later, the other one got a phone call about a flight to America. Now, this we're already used to in our days and people that are in the group. However, this has another part to it. And this is another interesting twist when we talk about the level of hishtadlus. The boy that's going to America, and I have permission from his father, I'm not going to say the name, but if you identify, there's a big chance he will, it's fine. The boy going to America, his sister's getting married. And he was supposed to be here for the wedding. And he kept on telling his father, listen, they're saying that except for this flight, there's not going to be another one for South Africans to leave on. I can't lose my whole Eluzman and Wintersman. I just have to go. And if I miss the wedding, I miss the wedding. What can I do? His sister's getting married next week. And his father said, listen, his father's a big Talmid Chacham, a Rabbi, and his father says, listen, because it's a kibbud avim d'oraisa for you to be at your sister's wedding, that is not your hishtadlus. There is no way, as we spoke a lot of times in the shiur, that one of the biggest measurements for hishtadlus is Hashem doesn't want you to do what's wrong, halachically. He said, it can't be your hishtadlus. So the boy said, so maybe move the wedding, make it closer. Anyways, not a lot of people, lockdown, corona, regulations, whatever it is. And I said, no, we can't move the wedding, unfortunately. The flight was set to be on Motzei Shabbos. The wedding's supposed to be on Sunday. And his father said, I'm sorry. You got to be at the wedding. It's kibbud avim d'oraisa. And once you've done the Ishtadlus, you have nothing to worry about because Hashem will send you another flight. The boy accepted and he gave up. Literally the next day or a few hours later, I think it was that evening, he gets a phone call that they were overbooked in that flight or whatever it is, and they're taking another flight Monday morning, which will be half price, by the way. And simple as that. And I'm not talking about Chassidish Shemaisas from 400 years ago. Obviously, they didn't have flights, but I'm talking about Johannesburg this week. And a Kala that's about to get married, and her brother's going to be going, almost as if he got a cheaper flight just so he can stay for her wedding. Because that's the concept. Once a person does his limitation, Hashem takes care of the rest. On a personal level, I had the same situation exactly. For myself, I was extremely frustrated. There was just no way to get my son is going to be bar mitzvah soon, and then he's about to put on tefillin in less than a month, and I just couldn't get the tefillin here. And I tried to do ishtadlus, and eventually I gave up. I got the phone call that there is a flight out of nowhere. Somebody calls me and he says, there's going to be a flight in 2 days. Find a way to get the tefillin. It happened to be that those days I was extremely busy and I just couldn't take care of it. I called my father, which some people will say it's not a big nes because my father is an extreme Baal Chesed and Tzaddik. But I just called him and basically told him, this is my situation. I found the flight. And what am I supposed to do? Tell me what to do. My father didn't tell me what to do. He took care of the whole thing by himself. And literally the minimum things I needed to take care of was exactly the few minutes I had. And mamash, he took, this is maybe also part because he's a tzaddik, but he took care of everything. Kipshutoy just got the tefillin about 10 minutes ago from Eretz Yisrael. Extreme nisim, and it only happened after I completely gave up. After not giving up that I'll have tefillin, and this is a very big difference in Ishtadlus. We spoke about it a few weeks ago regarding Yaakov Avinu, the difference between, I'll just remind because there's a few people that are new, we saw the difference that Yaakov Avinu, when he went to fight back, he was scared maybe the Malach of Esau, the Shaar of Esau is going to win because of an Avera. And obviously it's brought down as a very positive thing that he was nervous of the Avera. And we saw on the other hand, by Milchama, when people go out to fight for war, it says, Isha Yoreh Verach Halevavos, as a very negative thing. What's the difference? And the difference is very simple. Yaakov Avinu wasn't scared that Hashem won't help him and save him. He was scared that maybe because of an Avera, he doesn't deserve the Hatzalah. So all he needed to do is to be mischazak and Emunah and trusting Hashem and to do tshuva or whatever it is. When a person goes to war, they're scared that because of the Avera, they're not going to be able to win. They're not going to be protected. It's more about Hashem not helping them. It's not about something they can do. It's about the fear that you can't do. And that's a very big difference. When somebody is worried about an Avera and he says, okay, so I can solve it in A, B, C, that's a very positive thing. I can do tshuva, I can work around it. Somebody says, because of the Avera, I can't solve it, I'm giving up, that's a very negative thing. And by that, we could say, by that we could see a very simple thing when it comes to Ishtadlus. When a person says, I give up on my Ishtadlus, which means I don't give up on achieving what I need to achieve. I'm saying I finished my part. Now it's Hashem's part. Now I'm hoping and trusting and expecting it to come. That's not giving up. Giving up is when a person says, okay, I did what I can, I give up, I'm not going to have it. Then he won't get it from Shemayim. The only time a person will get it from Hishtadlus when he gives up his Hishtadlus, which means he did everything he can. Only afterwards, Hashem will, as you say, continue from there. Anyways, that was a very long introduction per se. Let's go a bit into where the 10 things of where we're up to. So we spoke about 10 things, and the comparisons that we have, the Rabbi Bechaya, Chovos Halevavos, he brings between a person who has Bitachon, Emunah, and trust Hashem. Sorry, Bitachon, we're not up to Emunah yet. He has Bitachon, then he is much greater and much more powerful than someone who has the ability of taking metal and changing it into gold. And the first few things we said, just going to go very quickly through them for the people that joined. As I said, number one, the chemist needs tools. Number two, the chemist needs to take to work, which could be quite dangerous, could be quite risky, and he needs to do it. Number three, he cannot trust anybody with that secret, and the person who has bitachon is happy to share it with everybody. Number four, he has to stack up or risk not having, which is either way a challenge, and Baal Bitachon doesn't need that. And number five, we said that he's always scared if authorities, SARS, anybody finds out about his ability, he can get in big trouble. And Baal Bitachon has nothing to be scared of. The sixth is that it doesn't matter how much money that person has, he's still scared. He could still get sick, he could still have pain, he could still be suffering from something, and a Baal Bitachon doesn't cover only finances. Hashem does everything, and he covers health and strength, etc. As we spoke about, even that when the person davens for Parnassa, it's including refuah, which I heard directly from Chaim Kanievsky with one of the yeshivas that was there, simply because if a person's sick, he has nothing to do with his Parnassa properly. So we see that is, by definition, connected. The next thing is that we saw is that the seventh thing is that the money is not food. At the end of the day, you need to take money and change it into food. And if you're stuck in a certain place during lockdown, shops are closed, or whatever it is, it doesn't help you. Baal Bitachon gets what he needs, not only the finances. The Shmini. Now we're up to the eighth thing. It says the eighth thing is that a person that has the ability of changing metal into gold, he can't stick around in one area for a long time, because the longer he stays in one place, stable and calm, the bigger chance his secret will be revealed. He's always facing the risk that people will realize something's going on, people will see what he's doing, and he doesn't have the ability to have the calmness and minuch sanefesh to stay stable and safe in a certain place. Baal Bitachon could stay one place for years because he has nothing to hide. But if somebody has to hide something, he cannot stay in one place. He has to move around, change locations, get around to different places, because there's always a risk and a fear that he will lose his secret. People will figure out what's happening. People will see what's going on. People will see that the metal is changing into gold. Something's going on. People will see he doesn't work and he's financially stable. What's happening? So he doesn't have the ability to stay for a long time because he has what to hide. And he has what to hide. He can't let it grow. The ninth thing is, and this is a very important thing, a person who has money, as much as the money can help him, this chemist guy, it could only help him in this world. Which means, as long as he's alive, he can enjoy his money. Once he's gone, he has no benefit of what he bought, what he earned, his finances. A very famous story that happened in Eretz Yisrael many years ago. A very clever man who was very rich, very wealthy, and when he passed away, he left the tzava, and he asked to open it as soon as he was nifter. And he wrote in his tzava that he has in his cupboard a special pair of socks that years and years and years ago, he wore those socks to walk a very long distance to see one of the Gedolim. And he felt that schus of walking such a long distance to see this gadol is a big schus for him when he goes into the next world. So he's begging the family to let him be buried in his socks. Obviously, we know halacha, a person is not buried in clothes, he's buried in tachrichim, he's buried in his talis, and he begged to be buried in that. And his family had the finances to put pressure, and they tried everything. They went to Chevra Kadisha and they promised a donation, and they said they could do this, and they went to Rabbanim and tried to find Heterim, and they were well connected. It didn't help. Eventually, to their disappointment, no Rav, no Chevra Kadisha, nobody agreed, nobody accepted, and as upsetting as it was, they had unfortunately needed to bury him without his socks that he so badly wanted to be buried with. And it was a difficult situation. They were upset. The one thing their father asked them is to be buried in these socks, and it didn't work. After the Shiva, they sat down all the siblings together, and there was a second will of how to split up the money. And he writes to them in the second will, he says like this, that by now you guys know that as rich as I was, as powerful as I was, as strong as I was, and with all your connections, I wasn't able to take a pair of socks with me to the next world. Please take that in consideration and make sure you guys don't get into fights over my money. And it was a very powerful story, but it says the Chovos Halevavos, any finances, any ability, any power a person gets in this world, it's limited for this world. There's nothing he can do with it in the next world. Yes, there is something, just to be clear, there is something, and I think it is worth mentioning at this point, although not straight into the Bittachon, but it's brought down by Yaakov Tzaddik, I think we've mentioned, that when he went to go and get his small bottles, pachim ktanim, his small jugs, says Rashi, tzadikim momoinam chaviv aleim migufon. The tzadikim, they enjoy, they respect their money more than their bodies, which in no way sounds like a compliment. If any of us would get a compliment from somebody, you respect your money more than your health, we would find it quite offensive. And then Rashi comes and he says, Yaakov Avinu, his money is worth more than his body for him. And the answer is simple to understand, is that Yaakov Avinu, why did he go back to get those jugs? What was it so important? He understood that any finances he gets in this world is because he has a reason to use them. Yeah, there's a reason for them. To the degree, Chazal tell us about certain Amoraim, that their big shvach was when they left the world, they didn't leave anything behind. They finished all their money. Why is it such a big shvach? Because every drop of finances we get, it's for a certain purpose. So a person that uses up everything he has, he fulfilled fully everything he needed. Says Yaakov Avinu, Hashem gave me these few jugs. Obviously, they're for a certain purpose. And I'm not going to leave this strength and power of mitzvahs behind me. Now, why do we see that his money is worth more than his body? And that's an interesting thing. His body is very limited to the amount of chesed he could do. I mean, until today, we used to know that you can't dance at two weddings at the same time. Although they say that with the Zoom weddings, it's easier. But by definition, a person can't be in two places at the same time. So if you're doing this mitzvah, you can't necessarily be doing that mitzvah. If a person needs to sleep, he can't be doing a mitzvah while he's sleeping, unless he's learning before or after, not going into details. But a person could have his money creating mitzvahs in a few different places at the same time. He could donate for learners over there and for tzedakah over there and have his money do more things for him. To the degree that it says that if somebody loses some money. Imagine you go on the street, you lose 50 rands, and only a poor person finds it. You're yoitza the mitzvah of tzedakah. Not yoitza, but it's considered tzedakah, which means you can use your money for mitzvahs easily. So he says, this person, so Yaakov Avinu understood that if his body is to do mitzvahs, that's all he needs his body for. And if he needs his money to do mitzvahs, that's all he needs his money for. His money could continue to do mitzvahs for him after he's gone. His body can't. His money could do mitzvahs for him. It could be lent to people while he's sleeping. He himself can't. Maybe he has more chavivus. He enjoys more his money more than his body. So, looking at this person again, this person who makes metal into gold, into silver, he's limited to use his money in this world. He can enjoy it fully, but in this world. But if somebody has bitachon, the benefits of bitachon is also in the next world. Somebody comes to Olam Ha'emes and with the mila of trusting Hashem, being with Hashem, relying on Hashem, that is tremendous strength and power that's beneficial for the next world as well, not only for this world. Okay, so that's the ninth thing that he said. The ninth thing is that you can't take your power with you, but Bala Bitachon, somebody who has Bitachon, he has the relationship in the mitzvah of being connected to Hashem, follows him to the next world as well. He takes it with him, he enjoys it, and it's beneficial for him forever. And he even says that Abitach Bashem Chesed Yisavenu, that's in this world, but Morav Tuvcha Asher Tzofanta Lireyecho, that Tzofanta is hidden for later on. For the people that have Yiras Shamayim, that have Bitachon, they will have that forever and on a much later destination. I mean, it will be there forever for this person. Okay. The Asiri, he says, this chemist person, if anybody finds out what he's doing, we spoke about the fear that he lives in. But what would happen if somebody finds out? That will be the end of his life. Because if a person lives in this world and he's changing nature, he's changing the game, he's changing the rules, people will not let him be here. Because it's not real. In a way, it's fraud, number one, because that's not a real thing. He has the power, but he's creating something, but he's not able to do it. But there's a few different ways, different pshatim, that different Mepharshim explain this. But if we take a simple way, people won't let him stay in the economy if he's not playing by the rules. It could be extremely dangerous, and he will be killed, or he will lose what he has, because he can control the world, he can change the world. Authorities won't allow it. They'll take it away from him and get rid of him. However, if a person does it in a derech hateva, okay, then if somebody lives in bitachon, if the world hears about it, nothing will happen. The only thing that will happen will be that people will come to him for brachas, people will come to him for eitzah, people will come for him to consult. So look at these two different people. The chemist guy that goes against nature, he's changing the balance in the world, and if he gets caught, that will be a death penalty for him. The person who has bitachon in Hashem, he will become the advisor for the community. He will suddenly become somebody that everybody looks up to him. We want to get guidance from somebody who has strong bitachon in Hashem, right? But if somebody doesn't have the bitachon, he just has the technical part, this chemist guy. So once he's exposed, he lost everything. So that's the 10th thing. I think it's already the third week we're working on it, so we're going to move on. But that's the 10th maila that Rabbeinu Bechaya brings down of a person who has bitachon more than a person who has the ability of changing silver or metal into gold and to abilities, into value. Okay, so now, just to remind everybody, we still haven't started Shaar Habitachon. We're still at the Hakdama, Psicha as he calls it. Emunah Bitachon has a long introduction, and we're still into the introduction, and we have quite a journey still in the introduction before we even get there. So in the introduction, Emunah Bitachon is speaking about the concepts, the importance of having bitachon. So now, the first thing he says, another thing he says, if we have somebody that has clear bitachon in Hashem, and he is blessed with money, he is blessed with finances, he doesn't have a fear of using the money for mitzvahs. If somebody understands that all his wealth came from Hashem, right? And he has the wealth because Hashem showered him with this amazing blessing. There is no way that doing what Hashem tells him is a risk to his wealth. There is no way that using his money for mitzvahs or for other people, for their needs and their stuff, is a risk to his financial stability or a risk to his level of wealth. There's a bit of a point to it that we all know that Hotzoi Shabbos, that they come back, and if somebody spends money on Shabbos, that's even a higher concept. But the basic understanding is, if, let's say, you have a child that is financially relying on you, and you tell him one day, do me a favor, on the way home from work or from kollel or from wherever you are, please stop at the shop and buy me something. Now, if the child is relying on you financially, he has nothing to worry about picking up something in the shop for you because he's going to come give it to you and he's going to get more money. He doesn't have the fear of, oi, I'm going to use up my money and what's going to be. You don't have that question of what's going to be because you are financially stable because your parents are supporting you. Somebody has that understanding that he is financially stable because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is supporting him. So when Hashem says, go spend money on a lulav and an esrog, he wouldn't come and say, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to spend now money on an esrog? It's so expensive. You know where your money is coming from. You have nothing to lose. And by the way, in a way we can see it. In a way we can see it. Many times, people look back and they'll tell you that their financial stability wasn't so different when they had 3 kids and when they had 5 kids. We all know that it's almost double the amount, and it should be that our financial stability should be way worse. And I know that just the thought of sending my kids one day to yeshiva is a nightmare financially. And to Sem is a nightmare financially, and I don't know how I'll ever do it. But then speaking to my friends that had the same nightmares like me a few years ago, they tell me that they manage somehow. They don't know. And then a lot of them tell me that when their kids are back from Sem and from yeshiva, and now they don't need to expend it, they still have the same level of finances. Which means, in a way, it's very common that people look back and don't say, well, the years my kids were in yeshiva were harder financially. The years my kids weren't, it was easier. The years I had kids learning and expend. In a way, our financial situation is not that dependent on it. And it's very simple. Because if we have expenses that Hashem tells us to pay, then they're covered. It's as simple as that. When we have expenses that Hashem tells us to pay, it's covered. And that's a tremendous thing, by the way. The Tzanzer Rebbe always used to say, we say all the time, by Siyum, we say davening, Anu rotzim v'heim rotzim. People say it every time they go into Beis Medrash. We're running and they're running. We're running for Divrei Torah, they're running for Dvarim B'Teilim. We're Anu amelim v'hem amelim. We all know that Mishnah over there. Now, people explain that if a person is running to learn Torah, if a person is running to work, it's a waste of time. Says the Tzanzer Rebbe, that's nonsense, he says. Tzanzer Rebbe says like this. He says, Afterwards, I'll say another thing just because if you can't talk about tzanzer without mentioning it. But tzanzer Rabbi says an amazing thing. He says, if a person, the Mishnah doesn't come to tell us in any way, the Brisa doesn't come to tell us in any way that, oh, if the people that are running to learn Torah are on a higher level than the people that are going to do business. So there's no question that Torah is funner and nicer and more beneficial than going to work. Unfortunately, you got to go to work, but learning Torah is better. There's no question about it. He says what that Brisa is talking about. It's talking about two people that are going to work. He says two people are going to work, and still one is rotzing and is wasting his time, and one is going to work and he's gaining. How does it work? He says, it depends what you do with your money. He says, one person goes to work, and whatever his money comes, he buys a fancy car, he buys something that's luxury, and which is really a waste. I mean, I was once with the Rav here in South Africa. I was driving, and a car next to us parked. I think it was a Bentley or something. It was an extremely expensive car. And the Rav looks at the car, and he tells me, it looks like an expensive car. I said, yes, it's a very expensive car. He tells me, I feel so bad for that person. You know how scared he is if chas v'shalom somebody scratches his car? How many nightmares, how much expenses he has if somebody damages his car? Rahmanis. But anyways, he says, the concept is like this. We go to work, and we spend all our money on mitzvahs. We spend 30% more on food because it's kosher. That's going to work for a mitzvah. We, instead of having 5 plates at home, we have weekday and Shabbos, Fleishik, Milchik, Parif, Pesach. Extra sets for the guests. We have clothes for the kids for Shabbos, during the week. We have, I once calculated that it's easy, 70, 80% at least of all our expenses are 100% for Torah, tuition. All these things that if a person wasn't going in the path of Hashem, he wouldn't have this expense. If you walk into a non-Jewish home, you won't see Pesach kitchen and Fleishik kitchen and Milchik kitchen, and you won't see paying extra for kosher food, and you won't see, I'm not even talking about Dalet Minim and Tefillin and Shabbos clothes, not even going that far even. So by definition, Onu rotzim ve'im rotzim, we go to work so we can spend 80% of our finances on mitzvahs. Ve'im rotzim, to spend it on nonsense, on something that's not valuable. And that's what he says. He says the schar that we're getting in Shemaim is not about learning Torah. That's a whole different situation, a whole different ballgame. The schar we're talking about is just going to work normally and making money and using it for kosher stuff. That's the schar we're getting. That's endless. Now, if somebody spends his money on mitzvahs and he knows it's coming from Hashem, so he has no fear of what's going to be. So he's happy to spend it. Not more than 20%, because that's the halacha. There's boundaries. A person can't put out all his money on mitzvahs. He's got to do according to the halacha boundaries. But he has no fear. He has nothing to worry about. And right before I continue, I have to say about the tzanzer Rebbe, which is in a way similar. People have heard this story from him tens and thousands of times in different variations. But the one I heard was, actually he was speaking to an almana who lost her husband and son at the number 2 Eged terrorist attack. It was about, I'm guessing it's over 20 years already. I mean, I have to guess that, although that makes me feel old, but it was it was at least over 20 years ago. The bombing of the number 2, and maybe not 20 years, maybe a bit less. And this lady lost her family; they were killed. She went to the tzanzer Rebbe, and he told her something like that. He said, we have to remember the Klezmer Rebbe, he lost his whole family in the Holocaust. Then he lost, I think, 11 kids. And then when he came back, he remarried and he started a family again. So she asked him, how do you manage with Hashem? How do you manage with Emunah, with Bitachon in such a situation? And he told her, this is how he managed through the war. And he said something simple. He said like this. He said, sorry, I'm just going to stop for 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Sorry from the tzibur. So the Tanna Rebbe said like this. He says, imagine walking in the street and suddenly somebody who comes behind you bangs you on your back. You get like a massive bang. You turn around, you're about to fight. It's painful. Somebody's attacking you in the middle of the street. But what happens when you turn around and you're about to attack? You see that it's actually your best friend you haven't seen in 35 years since you graduated school, and you love him. And he came to surprise you. It's the most beautiful moment of your life. You turn to me, I can't believe it's you. Wow, where were you all these years? He says the same thing. The bang is the bang. But if you understand that Hashem is giving you a bang to say hello after all these years, you can deal with it, even though your back is sore, but you're facing somebody who loves you. But if you're facing somebody who doesn't love you, then you can't deal with your back that's sore. So anyways, I'm not going to go too much off track. But this concept of somebody who has Habitachon, he can use his money for the mitzvahs, he can use the money for the right thing, he can use his money in a proper way, and he doesn't have to stress financially so much. What am I going to do? And by the way, when I say mitzvahs, it's not only what we call a mitzvah by definition. A person has a chiyuv to create a comfortable, nice environment at home. A person, it's important that he has a good relationship for shalom bayis. Which, by the way, I'm not even going down the route that we've spoke many times, that they say that Parnassa and shalom bayis is from the wife. Many times it was the Rebbe once wrote a story about one of his Hasidim who lost a tremendous amount of money, and he asked him if there were any changes lately at home, and he couldn't think of anything. And he said, please tell me your routine. And in the end, he tells the Rebbe, the only thing, he says, it sounds silly, but the only thing I can think of is my wife's on a diet. And he tells him, ask her if she stopped eating bread during the week. So he asked his wife, and she said yes. So he says, you see, your birkas hamazon of your wife is so powerful now that she's not eating bread during the week. It's putting you under some stress. But anyways, we see that if somebody understands the relationship with Hashem, if somebody understands that it's coming from somewhere, so he just does what he needs to do, and he doesn't need to stress and to fear about how to guard his money, about how to make sure it's safe, how to make sure he's using it in the right way, because he does it in the right way, in the way that he should be doing it. And once he did the right thing, he doesn't have to fear what's going to happen. So I do see we're running out of time. So just to conclude this concept. So we ended off the 10 things of the person who has Bitachon, that he's stronger than the person who knows how to invent and create gold out of metal. We spoke about the concept of somebody who is who knows that his money is coming from Hashem, that he doesn't have the fear of using it for the right thing, if it's for his environment at home, if it's for the mitzvahs he needs to do, if it's for the chiyuvim or whatever it is, it's still, he doesn't have that fear. And we spoke about even guarding it. A person does what he needs to do al pi halacha, he does it properly, then he can let go. A person can let go. He doesn't have to stress consistently over, did I guard it properly in the right way? He can just, in a way, let it go. The next part is what's it called? He continues what happens if somebody has his money too much all over the place and in too much areas. But although we have a minute, maybe I'm not going to start the new topic. I think it's better to start fresh. So yeah, shkoyach to everybody. Sorry, it took a few minutes to start. Anybody wants to ask, wants to comment, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, on the WhatsApp group. And yeah, just thank you everybody for being here. And yeshakach. Have a good night. Keep safe. And please God, next week, same place, same time.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much.
Good night. Bye.
Murdered.